Courtney lifted her champagne glass and waited until everyone at the rehearsal dinner looked at her. To Dana, she said, "You were always the spare." A few people laughed because she was laughing. Then my mother said, "Well, she was." My father nodded. Courtney was always going to carry this place forward. I sat 3 tables from the open barn doors with my napkin folded across my lap. Behind them, the orchard was going dark. The string lights had just come on and little moths were already circling the bulbs. My name is Dana Edwards Beck, and I was 33 when this happened. If you've ever been useful to your family but never valued by them, I understand. Please like and subscribe. The strange thing was, I didn't feel surprised when Courtney said it. I felt confirmed. There's a difference. Before that evening, I could still tell myself my parents didn't realize what they were doing. Courtney was louder. She needed more. She worked at the family venue, so naturally they discussed it with her. I had built a separate life, so maybe they assumed I didn't care. Those were the explanations I'd been making for them. Then Courtney called me the spare in front of 60 people, and our parents agreed before anyone had time to decide whether it was funny. I looked across the table at my husband, Joshua. His water glass had stopped halfway to his mouth. He lowered it carefully. Courtney kept talking. "I mean that lovingly," she said. "Every family needs somebody who can step in when the main plan gets complicated." She waved her glass toward me. "And Dana is very good at paperwork." There was another ripple of laughter, less certain this time. My mother, Julie, touched Courtney's arm and said, "Don't tease your sister too much." She was smiling when she said it. My father, Glenn, leaned back in his chair. "Dana knows we appreciate her." I did know they appreciated me. They appreciated that I answered calls. They appreciated that I corrected contracts. They appreciated that I could leave work early when the venue insurance needed a document before 5. They appreciated that I never asked why Courtney's name went on the website while mine appeared only when something required a signature from a witness. They appreciated me the way people appreciate a spare tire. Useful, quiet, and preferably out of sight. Courtney raised her glass higher. "To the future of Edwards Orchard Barn," she said. And to finally putting it in the hands it was always meant for. Her fiancé, Timothy Christensen, stood beside her. He smiled and rested one hand against the back of her chair. Timothy was 37, polished without looking flashy, and always dressed like he might have to meet a lender with 10 minutes' notice. "To Courtney," he said. My father lifted his glass first. "To Courtney." My mother repeated it. Most of the room followed. I didn't. That was the first time I noticed Jasmine Torres watching me. Jasmine was the photographer Courtney had hired for the whole wedding weekend. She stood near the bar with one camera hanging from her neck and another on a strap at her hip. A small black audio pack was clipped to her waistband. She looked away as soon as I met her eyes. At the time, I thought she was embarrassed for me. I didn't know yet that her equipment had caught every word. To explain why I stayed in my seat, I need to go back to that morning. I was at my desk at Greenbrier Title and Escrow in Lewisburg, clearing a problem with a deed. A seller's middle initial had been wrong on one document and missing from another. The lender wanted to close anyway. The buyer's agent kept saying it was probably fine. "Probably fine isn't insurable," I told him. He sighed into the phone. "Dana, it's one letter. It's one letter attached to a house. So what do you need?" "A corrected affidavit and 20 minutes. He sent it. That was most of my job. People brought me situations they had described as simple, and I found the part that wasn't. I checked names, legal descriptions, old liens, releases, signatures, and dates. I didn't trust a summary when I could read the recorded document. That habit had irritated my family for years. It was about to become very important. My desk faced a window overlooking a narrow side street. It had rained earlier, and the bricks outside were still dark. I could see the awning over the coffee shop on the corner lifting in the wind. Joshua texted me just before noon. "Did you eat?" I looked at the unopened yogurt beside my keyboard, working on it. That means no. It means I'm considering it. He sent back, "Bold strategy before a wedding weekend." Joshua was a structural engineer. He believed everything, including lunch, required proper support. We'd been married for 5 years, and he had learned that asking whether I needed help usually got him nowhere. Asking what time he should arrive worked better. He called while I was eating the yogurt. "What time do you need me at the barn?" he asked. "The dinner starts at 6. Courtney wants family there at 4, so she wants you there at 3:30. Probably. You know you're not working for her today. I know. Do you?" I leaned back and watched a delivery truck squeeze around the corner. "It's one weekend," I said. "That's what you said about the engagement party. That was one evening and the venue showcase?" I didn't answer. He let the silence sit for a moment. "I'll be there at 4, he said. "If she hands me a ladder, I'm leaving." "You inspect bridges for a living." "Exactly. I know what ladders do." I laughed and the tightness in my shoulders eased. Before we hung up, he asked, "Are you all right going into this?" "Why wouldn't I be?" "Because it's Courtney's wedding at the family property and your mother has spent 6 months talking like the orchard grew Courtney from a seed. That's dramatic." "Is it inaccurate?" "No." When I left the office, I took my navy dress from the back of my car and changed in the restroom. It was plain and comfortable, which was what Courtney had requested for me. Her exact text had been, "Nothing too bridal or attention-grabbing." The dress wasn't close to white. It wasn't close to attention-grabbing. Still, I sent her a picture before buying it because experience had taught me that Courtney could turn any unapproved choice into evidence of hostility. She replied, "Perfect. Very you." I knew that wasn't a compliment. Edward's Orchard Barn sat off Muddy Creek Road outside town. The drive from Lewisburg took me past low hills, open fields, and mailboxes leaning at different angles. The clouds were breaking apart by then. Sunlight moved across the wet grass in patches. My grandfather Dennis bought that land with my grandmother Rosa after he came home from the Army. He enlisted in 1965, served a combat tour in Vietnam in 1966, and came home in 1967. The next year, he and Grandma bought the orchard. The original barn was already there. It had a sloping roof, rough oak beams, and a stone foundation that always stayed cold. Grandpa repaired it over the years with whatever money they could save. When I was growing up, it wasn't an event venue. It was where he stored apple crates, tools, and a tractor that started only when it felt respected. Grandpa never told long stories about Vietnam. He kept one photograph in a drawer and his discharge papers in a metal box. What he talked about was the orchard. He knew which trees had survived late freezes. He could tell when rain was coming by the smell near the creek. He sharpened his pruning shears every Sunday during the winter and let me sit beside him while he did it. Courtney usually got bored after 5 minutes. I didn't. "You don't have to talk all the time to be good company," Grandpa once told me. That sentence stayed with me because it was one of the few descriptions of me that didn't sound like a complaint. My parents formed Edward's Orchard Barn as a business in 2010. They cleaned out the old equipment, reinforced the loft, added bathrooms, and built a catering kitchen. At first, the venue hosted small weddings and church dinners. Then my mother hired a photographer for the website. Courtney started styling tables, and the business grew. Courtney joined full-time in 2016. By the following spring, Mom was calling her the creative director, though I never saw a formal job description. My role was less clear. I had a full-time career, but I still reviewed vendor agreements. I helped my mother compare booking software. I caught a tax parcel error before it delayed their liquor license renewal. When a couple threatened to sue over a canceled outdoor ceremony, I found the weather clause Courtney had forgotten was in their contract. I wasn't paid. Dad called it helping the family. Courtney called it using my special little skill set. When Grandpa died in 2019, the whole place changed. Courtney removed his workbench from the back room because it didn't match the wedding decor. She put 3 of his apple crates near the entrance and filled them with artificial flowers. I asked where his tools went. "Storage," she said. "Which storage?" She rolled her eyes. "Dana, they're tools. They're not sacred objects." Grandma Rosa heard her. She turned away and walked outside without saying anything. I found the tools 2 days later in a leaking shed. Joshua helped me move them into Grandma's garage. My father said Courtney had been under pressure. My mother said I had embarrassed her by involving Joshua. That was how things worked in my family. Courtney did something. I reacted. My reaction became the problem. By the time I reached the orchard for the rehearsal dinner, delivery vans were parked along the gravel drive. White flowers had been tied to the fence posts. A wooden sign near the entrance read, "Courtney and Timothy, our forever starts here." I parked behind the catering van and found my mother inside the barn staring at a seating chart. "You're late," she said. I checked the time. It was 3:42. You said 4. I said family at 4. I assumed you'd know we needed help before then. With what? She handed me a stack of place cards. These need to be arranged alphabetically, but keep Timothy's business guests near the front. Courtney has a list. I looked around. Staff members were setting tables. Courtney stood on the far side of the room directing 2 florists. My father and Timothy were near the stage, talking to a man in a gray suit. "Who's that with Dad?" I asked. My mother glanced over. "One of Timothy's business partners." "Why is he at the rehearsal dinner? He's become a friend." That answer was too quick. Before I could ask anything else, she tapped the place cards against my palm. "Please don't start analyzing everybody. We have enough going on." I carried the cards to a table. Courtney's list put Timothy's business partner, Nathan Cole, beside my father. 2 other people from Christensen Hospitality Partners sat nearby. Grandma Rosa had been placed near the kitchen doors, where servers would pass behind her all evening. I moved Grandma to my table. My mother noticed within minutes. "Dana, why did you change this?" She couldn't hear from that seat. She was fine there. She'd have servers walking behind her. That table was for immediate family. She is immediate family. Mom lowered her voice. "Don't make everything difficult today. I moved 1 card, and now someone else has to move. Put me by the kitchen." Her face tightened. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Make a gesture so everyone notices how considerate you are." No one had noticed. The barn wasn't even half full. I placed my own card near the kitchen doors. "There," I said. "Problem solved." Mom took the card and moved it back. "Sit with your husband. We're not having people ask questions." That was the part my parents cared about most, not what happened. Who might ask questions about it? Courtney came over while I sorted the remaining cards. She wore a white jumpsuit with a wide satin belt. Her hair had been curled and pinned loosely at the back. She looked good, and I told her so. She glanced at my dress. "That's the one you sent me, right?" "Yes. It looked darker in the picture. It's navy." "I know. It's fine." She picked up Nathan Cole's place card. "Put him closer to Timothy," Mom said beside Dad. "Dad doesn't need to monopolize him. I'll switch them." Courtney started to walk away, then turned back. "Also, if anyone asks about the venue transition, let Dad answer." "What transition?" She looked at me for a second. "The general future of the barn." "What's changing?" "Nothing you need to worry about. You brought it up. Because you tend to jump into business conversations. I work in title and escrow. This isn't a closing, Dana. It's my wedding." Then she smiled as 2 bridesmaids came through the doors. "There you are," she called to them. The conversation was over. I stood there holding Nathan's place card. At first, I thought Courtney meant a management transition. Dad had been talking about retiring for years. Courtney already ran most of the events. If my parents wanted to make that official, it wouldn't exactly be shocking. Still, the phrase bothered me. Venue transition. Timothy's business guests. The way Mom had called his partner a friend. Joshua arrived a little after 4. He found me taping down the edge of a table runner. "No ladder," he said. "Not yet." He kissed my cheek, then looked across the room at Timothy and the men near the stage. "Is this a rehearsal dinner or an investor meeting?" "So you noticed that too. Hard not to. The one in gray keeps checking the electrical panels. That's Nathan Cole. He's Timothy's business partner." Joshua watched them for another moment. "Did your family tell you something?" "No." "Did you ask?" "Courtney said it was nothing I needed to worry about." "That sounds reassuring." I pressed the tape flat with my thumb. "Please don't start. I'm not starting anything. I want to get through tonight without a problem." Joshua looked at me. You aren't the one who usually creates the problem. I heard my mother call my name before I could answer. The next 2 hours passed in small jobs. I found an extension cord. I corrected the spelling of Grandma's first name on a printed menu. I drove back toward town because Courtney had forgotten the envelope with the officiant's payment at her apartment. When I returned, everyone else was taking photographs in the orchard. Courtney looked at me from the center of the group. We already did siblings, she said. That's okay. You took forever. I went where you told me. You could have texted. I did. She checked her phone, saw the message, and slipped it back into her pocket. Well, Jasmine can get one tomorrow. Jasmine stood several feet away with her camera. She opened her mouth, as if she might offer to take the picture then, but Courtney was already calling for the wedding party. I went inside and placed the payment envelope in my mother's purse. Dinner started at 7. For the first half hour, everything felt normal enough. People ate chicken, roasted potatoes, green beans, and rolls from a local bakery. Grandma told Joshua the potatoes needed salt. Dad moved between tables, shaking hands. Timothy introduced Nathan Cole to 3 relatives as his partner, though he never explained what they were partnering on. Then the toasts began. Courtney's friends spoke first. One told a story about a trip to Nashville. Another described Courtney as someone who always knew what she wanted and made sure she got it. My mother whispered, "That's our girl." Timothy thanked my parents for welcoming him into the family and trusting him with their legacy. That word made me look up. Legacy. My father nodded with both hands resting on the table. Timothy continued, Courtney and I are excited about what comes next, both personally and professionally. Nathan Cole lifted his glass. No one explained what that meant. Then Courtney stood. She thanked the vendors, the wedding party, and our parents. She talked about growing up at the orchard. She said the barn had always felt like hers. That wasn't true, but I didn't react. Then she looked at me. And of course, I have to thank my little sister, Dana, who has always been there as backup. A few people turned toward me. Courtney smiled wider. To Dana, "You were always the spare." My mother agreed. My father agreed. The room laughed. And in that moment, the questions about the business guests and the venue transition stopped feeling separate. Joshua's hand closed around mine under the table. Courtney finished her toast. People clapped. Music started again. I stayed another 20 minutes. Then I stood, walked to my parents' table, and told them I had a headache. My mother looked irritated. "Tonight of all nights? I'll be back tomorrow. Courtney will notice you left." Courtney was laughing with her bridesmaids near the bar. "I think she'll recover." Dad glanced up at me. "Don't be sensitive about the toast. She was having fun. I didn't say anything about it. You didn't have to." That was when Jasmine passed behind him carrying a camera case. She slowed when she heard us. For 1 second, she looked directly at me. Not pity, not embarrassment. It looked more like she wanted to say something. Then Courtney called her name, and Jasmine kept walking. Outside, Joshua waited until we reached the car before speaking. What did Courtney mean by the future of the barn? "I don't know. What did your parents mean?" "I don't know that either." He opened the passenger door for me. "Do you want me to drive?" I handed him the keys. The next morning, I went back to the orchard before the wedding preparations began. Mom was alone in the catering kitchen, entering something into her laptop. I stood across from her. Was Courtney's toast just a joke? Mom didn't apologize. She didn't even look surprised. "Oh, Dana," she said. "You know exactly what she meant. I'd like to hear you say it." She closed the laptop. Courtney stayed. She put her life into this place. You went off and built your own career. You encouraged me to, and it worked out for you. Why are you trying to turn that into a grievance? I'm asking whether you and Dad plan to give her the barn. Mom's eyes moved toward the kitchen door. Then she said, "The barn needs someone who understands what it can become. So yes, Courtney is the natural choice, and I'm the spare." She gave a tired little sigh. Not every truth sounds kind when you say it plainly. I looked at her for a few seconds. She opened the laptop again. "That's it?" I asked. "What else do you want me to say?" I want to know what's being transferred. Her fingers stopped above the keyboard. Nothing has been finalized. That isn't what I asked. She pushed her chair back and stood. This weekend is about your sister. I'm not discussing estate matters while the caterer is due any minute. Grandpa's estate was settled years ago. You know what I mean. No, I don't. She carried her coffee cup to the sink, though it was still full. Her back stayed toward me. The business has to move forward, she said. Your father and I can't run it forever. And you've decided Courtney gets it. She's earned it. Was I ever considered? Mom turned around. For the barn? For any part of it. You have a good job. So does Courtney. Courtney's job is here. I nodded once. There it was again. Any work I did for the barn didn't count because I'd done it around the edges of my own life. The weekends, contracts, emergency calls, and unpaid errands had somehow belonged to the family. They had never belonged to me. What did Timothy mean last night when he talked about what comes next professionally? I don't know. Ask Timothy. You seated his business partner beside Dad. Because they get along. Does Christensen Hospitality have a deal with the barn? Her face changed just enough for me to see it. Then she reached for a dish towel. You're doing that thing again. What thing? Interrogating people. I asked a direct question. During your sister's wedding weekend, the calendar doesn't change the answer. She folded the towel once, then again. Timothy has ideas, that's all. What kind of ideas? You'd have to ask him. I'm asking you because it's our family's property. Mom looked at me with genuine impatience. It's your father's business, Dana. That sentence landed differently, not because it was entirely wrong. Dad was the majority managing member of the company. I knew that. I'd seen the formation papers when they started the venue, but she hadn't said it was our family's business. She had said it was Dad's. That gave her a clean reason not to answer me. It also meant her argument from 30 seconds earlier that Courtney had earned the barn through family loyalty didn't fit. If it was simply Dad's, then earning it had nothing to do with anything. I picked up my purse from the counter. Fine, I said. Mom blinked. She was prepared for me to keep asking. My stopping unsettled her more than another question would have. You're not leaving upset, are you? I'm leaving because you said you wouldn't discuss it. I said not now. When? After the wedding? Would anything be signed by then? The catering kitchen went quiet. Mom set the towel down. You need to stop treating your sister like she's trying to take something from you. I didn't say she was. You don't have to. It's in your tone. I walked to the doorway. Behind me, she said, Please don't mention any of this to Grandma. I turned. Why would Grandma care about Timothy's ideas? She gets confused by business discussions. My grandmother didn't get confused. She disliked hearing people use vague language when they wanted room to change their story later. Did Grandma ask about the barn? I said. No. Then why bring her up? Mom pressed her lips together. A van door slammed outside. She looked toward the sound with visible relief. I have work to do, she said. So do I. I left before the caterer came in. Sitting in my car, I called Joshua. He answered on the second ring. How bad? What makes you think it was bad? You're calling before 8 in the morning. I watched my mother through the kitchen window. She greeted the caterer with both hands raised, already explaining where the coolers should go. She meant it, I said. The toast, all of it. I asked if it was a joke. She said Courtney was the natural choice. Joshua was quiet. I heard papers move on his end. Did she say what Courtney was being chosen for? The barn. Maybe the company. She kept changing the wording. What exactly did she say? I repeated the conversation as closely as I could. Joshua didn't interrupt. When I reached the part about Timothy having ideas, he asked me to say that again. Do you think his firm is investing? I asked. I think his business partner spent dinner looking at your family's property like he'd been given an inspection report. That's what I thought too. Did Julie answer you? No. She told me not to upset Grandma, which you hadn't mentioned doing. Right. Through the windshield, I could see the upper half of the barn. Someone had opened the loft doors. 2 workers were carrying folded chairs across the grass. Joshua said, "What do you know about the ownership?" "Dad owns most of the business. Mom has a share. I don't remember the percentages. The business, not the land." I rested my hand on the steering wheel. I assumed the company owned the land. "Have you ever seen a deed showing that?" I almost said yes. My job involved deeds every day. My family had asked me questions about the venue's insurance, contracts, and tax notices. It felt impossible that I had never looked at the recorded ownership. But feeling wasn't memory. "No," I said. "Then don't assume." It wasn't an accusation. It was how Joshua approached buildings. If someone said a wall was structural, he checked. If someone said it wasn't, he checked faster. "Grandpa put my name on some paperwork for the barn land," I said. "A long time ago." "What paperwork?" "I don't know. Dad said it was sentimental." "When did he tell you that?" "After Grandpa died. We were sorting boxes." "What did Dennis say about it?" "I don't remember him explaining it. That bothered me as soon as I heard myself say it. Grandpa had explained how to grease a tractor fitting. He had explained which apples were worth keeping after a hard drop. He had explained why the creek boundary on an old survey didn't follow the fence. He didn't treat records as sentimental. "Do you still have the paperwork?" Joshua asked. "Maybe." "Where?" "There's an old accordion folder in the hall closet. I put some of Grandpa's papers in it after the estate sale. Would you like me to look?" I thought about him standing in our hallway, opening a folder with my family name written across it. There was no good reason that bothered me, but it did. "No, I'll do it tonight." "Okay, I may be making this bigger than it is. You may be." His calm answer made me breathe out. Then he said, "You may also be the only person asking a basic question. A catering employee rolled a cart past my car. I have to go to work," I said. "Call me after you find the folder." I drove back to Lewisburg. At the office, I handled 2 closings and a refinance. I smiled at the right times. I checked identification, explained the wire instructions, and watched people sign their names where I placed the blue tabs. Just before lunch, a couple sat across from me while I reviewed their title commitment. The husband pointed to a listed exception. "What's that one?" "An old access easement," I said. "It stays with the property. The seller said it wasn't being used. That doesn't remove it." He looked at his wife. "So somebody can still cross our land?" "Under the conditions written in the easement, yes." The wife leaned closer to the document, even though we didn't agree to it. "You're agreeing when you take title subject to the recorded terms. They read the full page after that." When they left, I stayed in the conference room and stared at the empty chairs. Recorded terms didn't disappear because later owners stopped talking about them. They didn't become sentimental because a family member summarized them that way. They waited. I opened the county property search on my computer. Then I stopped. I could have typed in the barn's address. That would have been easy. It also would have been careless because online tax records weren't the same as the deed, and I knew better. I closed the website. That was my first deliberate decision. I wasn't going to ask Courtney. I wasn't going to warn Dad that I had questions. I wasn't going to give Mom another chance to choose softer words. I was going to read the document. The rest of the workday moved slowly. Courtney texted me twice. The first message said, "Mom says you came by and stressed her out." The second said, "Please don't create weird energy before tomorrow." I didn't answer either one. At 5:15, Dad called. "Your mother says you two had a disagreement." I asked her about the barn. "Why today?" "Because Courtney raised it last night. She made a toast. She talked about putting the venue into the hands it was meant for." Dad sighed. "You know how she talks. I also know Timothy thanked you for trusting him with your legacy. That's wedding language. What's happening with his firm?" A truck passed me on Washington Street, loud enough that I missed part of Dad's response. "What did you say?" I said Timothy is family now. That wasn't my question. "Dana, I have 6 things in front of me. Can this wait? Would the answer change if it did?" He went silent. Then his voice softened. "You've never wanted the barn." I didn't say I wanted it. You moved away from the business. I live 20 minutes away. You chose your own path. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not asking whether there's something wrong with me. You're taking this personally. It is personal." He exhaled through his nose. "We'll talk after the weekend. Has anything already been signed? Nothing that concerns you." It was almost the same answer Courtney had given me. I ended the call before he could tell me I was being difficult. At home, I changed into sweatpants and reheated leftover soup. Joshua arrived around 7 with a paper bag from the bakery. "I brought diplomatic pastries," he said. "For which side?" "Mine. I plan to eat too." I told him about Dad's call while we stood at the kitchen counter. Joshua listened, tore a roll in half, and pushed one piece toward me. He said, "Nothing that concerns you," I said. "That isn't no." "I know. Are you still looking for the folder?" "Yes." He nodded toward the hallway. "I'll stay out here." The closet held coats, a vacuum, 2 folding umbrellas, and boxes we hadn't opened since moving into the house. I found the accordion folder behind an old boot tray. It was brown cardboard with a cloth tie. My maiden name was written across the front in Grandpa's block handwriting. Dana Edwards. I carried it to the dining table. Joshua sat at the far end with his laptop. He didn't ask to see anything. That helped. Inside were tax receipts, copies of old orchard surveys, Grandpa's discharge papers, and a photograph of him standing beside the barn before the roof was repaired. I set the picture aside. Near the back, I found a single-page letter from Sarah Watkins' law office, dated in 2005. I knew Sarah by reputation. Her firm handled real property matters and estates. I had spoken with her at closings, though never about my family. The letter thanked Grandpa for returning signed documents concerning the Muddy Creek Road parcel. It listed a deed, a survey description, and something called a ground lease covenant. I read those words twice. "Did you find something?" Joshua asked. "A reference. To what?" "A deed and a ground lease covenant." "Do you have the actual documents?" I emptied the folder. I found the survey, but not the deed. The survey showed a smaller parcel inside the larger orchard tract. Its lines surrounded the barn, the gravel parking area, part of the drive, and the lawn used for outdoor ceremonies. The owner's name wasn't on the survey copy. I turned back to the letter. At the bottom, Sarah had written, "Recording confirmed," followed by an instrument reference. Joshua came closer only when I waved him over. He read the page without touching it. "What's a ground lease covenant?" he asked. "It can mean different things. What does this one mean? I don't know without reading it. Can you pull it tomorrow?" "Yes." "Online? I want the recorded copy." He looked at me, then at the survey. "This is the whole event area, not the whole orchard, just the barn parcel. Who owns it?" "I don't know." I put every page back in order except Sarah's letter and the survey. Those went into my work bag. The next morning, I reached the Greenbrier County Clerk's office shortly after it opened. I had been there plenty of times for work, but never to search my own name. Vicki Young was at the records counter. She'd helped me track down missing releases before, and she knew I wouldn't come in person for something I could settle with a tax search. "You look serious," she said. "I need a deed from 2005. Grantor? Dennis Edwards." She moved to her computer. "Grantee? I'm not sure." Vicki glanced at me. "That's unusual for you. It's a family document." She didn't ask another question. I gave her the instrument reference from Sarah's letter. She entered it, waited for the index to load, then leaned toward the screen. "Here it is." She turned the monitor enough for me to see. The index listed my grandfather as grantor. The grantee was Dana Edwards. Only Dana Edwards. My name. Vicki opened the scanned deed. The legal description matched the survey in my bag. The barn parcel, parking area, drive access, and ceremony lawn had been conveyed to me. The deed referred to an attached covenant recorded with it. I moved closer to the screen. "Can you open the attachment?" Vicki clicked through several pages. The first page carried the heading, Ground Lease and Fairness Covenant. Below that was my grandfather's signature. The family company hadn't existed yet when he recorded it. The covenant anticipated a future business using the parcel. It allowed that business to lease the land for a nominal amount as long as the venue remained held for the equal benefit of all his grandchildren. A later transfer required the landowner's written, notarized consent. I read the definition of landowner. It meant me, not Dad, not the company, not Courtney, me. I lowered myself into the chair beside the counter. Vicky watched my face. Did you not know about this? I knew Grandpa put my name on something, but not that he deeded you the parcel. No. She scrolled back to the recording stamp. It's been here since 2005. Has anything else been recorded against it? I'll check. She searched the parcel history. There were tax references and a utility easement, but no later deed out of my name. No transfer to the LLC. No release of the covenant. Vicky looked at me over her glasses. According to this record, you still own it. I asked for certified copies of everything. While the printer ran, I stood at the counter with Sarah's old letter in my hand. My family had spent years calling it Dad's barn. Courtney had spent years acting like she was inheriting the ground beneath her feet. The public record said something else. Vicky placed the certified pages in front of me. What are you going to do? She asked. I slid them into my work bag. I'm going to find out why nobody wanted me to read them. Vicky nodded, like that answer made sense to her. Keep the certified set separate from your working copy, she said, and talk to a property attorney before you sign anything. Has anyone requested this record recently? She turned back to the computer. I can't always see who views the public index online. Let me check the copy log. She ran one finger down a paper beside the terminal. There was a certified copy request last month. Who requested it? Watkins and Bell, Sarah's firm. Anything else? An online document order from a commercial title company in Charleston. That was about 3 weeks ago. Can you tell who their client was? No, the receipt only lists the company. That didn't prove Timothy's firm had requested it. Commercial title companies pulled records for all kinds of reasons. It did mean somebody had looked. Thank you, I said. Vicky slid the receipt from my copies across the counter. You know where to find me. I put the certified set inside a blank closing folder before leaving the building. The working copies stayed in my bag with Sarah's letter. At the office, I shut my door and placed the deed beside the survey. The legal description was dense, but I read those all day. I traced the parcel from the iron pin near the road, along the old fence line past the creek access and back toward the orchard. There was no question about what it covered. The barn sat on my land. So did the parking area, the lawn, and the section of drive every delivery truck used. The business-owned chairs, tables, kitchen equipment, decorations, and whatever interest it had in the building itself. It did not own the ground beneath any of those things. I pulled the company's formation documents from the state business database. Dad was listed as the managing member. The filing history showed amendments, annual reports, and the company's current address. My name appeared nowhere. That wasn't surprising. I already knew I wasn't part of the LLC. What surprised me was that there was no recorded memorandum showing the company's lease interest in the land. The covenant allowed a ground lease, but I couldn't find a separate lease in the county index. That didn't mean one didn't exist. Some leases weren't recorded. It meant I needed the original file. I called Sarah's office. The receptionist told me Sarah was in a meeting until 11. Can I leave a message? Of course. Tell her it concerns a deed and covenant she prepared for Dennis Edwards in 2005. I have the recording reference. There was a short pause. Are you Dana Edwards? Dana Beck now, but yes, I'll include that. I gave her my number and ended the call. Then I called Joshua. He was between site meetings and answered from his truck. I own it, I said. The barn? The land under it. He didn't speak right away. The record is clear? Completely. Grandpa deeded the parcel to me. It was never transferred out. What does the covenant say? I understand part of it. The company can use the property for a nominal amount as long as the venue is held for the equal benefit of all Grandpa's grandchildren. A transfer needs my notarized consent. Are you one of how many grandchildren? 2, Courtney and me. So giving the business to Courtney alone could affect the covenant. I think so. I don't know exactly how. Does your family know? They know my name was on old paperwork. I don't think they know what it means. Did you? No, that's not what I asked. I looked at the certified folder on my desk. They told me it didn't mean anything, I said. Joshua's voice stayed level. That's different from not knowing. I knew what he meant. I had accepted their description because checking it would have felt distrustful. At work, I would never tell a buyer to rely on somebody else's memory of a deed. With my own family, I had done exactly that. I'm waiting for Sarah to call, I said. Good. Courtney wants everyone at the barn at noon for a final walkthrough. Are you going? Yes. Why? Because they're discussing something they don't want me to ask about. He started to respond, then stopped. What? I asked. Nothing. Just be careful about how much you tell them. I'm not telling them anything yet. Good. Courtney texted while we were still on the phone. Please be at the barn by 12. Mom said you're in a mood, so maybe take a walk first. I read it to Joshua. He said, That sounds like a person who deserves a prompt response. I put my phone face down. I'll see you this evening. Call if anything changes. At 11:30, Sarah still hadn't returned my message. I moved the certified copies into the locked cabinet where we kept original closing documents. The cabinet wasn't necessary, but I didn't want them sitting in my car at the orchard. I took only the working copy and Sarah's letter. The barn parking lot was crowded when I arrived. Florists were building arrangements beneath the covered side porch. A rental crew rolled linen carts through the rear doors. Someone was testing the sound system inside, repeating the same 3 words into a microphone. Check, check, 1. Courtney stood in the center aisle with a clipboard. You made it, she said. You asked me to. She looked at my empty hands. Did you bring the printed vendor timeline? No one asked me to. I put it in the family group chat. You put it in the wedding party chat. I'm not in that one. She frowned at her phone as if I had arranged the group settings myself. Can you print it? From where? The office. My office is in town. There's a printer in Dad's room. Then send me the file. She tapped her screen several times. Done. I walked toward Dad's office at the back of the barn. The room had once stored feed. Now it held a desk, filing cabinets, a small safe, and shelves full of booking binders. The door was partly open. Nathan Cole stood inside with Dad and Timothy. Nathan had a leather portfolio under one arm. I stopped before they saw me. Nathan was speaking. The committee won't extend again. The term sheet expires Monday. Dad said, We understand. I'm not trying to add pressure, Glenn. I'm telling you what council told me this morning. We need the final title package and executed transfer documents before the funds are released. How soon after that? Timothy asked. If everything is clean, the wire can go Monday. Dad gave a low whistle. That fast? That's why we've been pushing the title work. The sound technician tested the microphone again. His voice came through the speakers above me. Check, check, 1. I moved away from the office before the noise stopped. Courtney was near the stage arranging candles. The printer's being used, I said. By who? Dad, Timothy, and Nathan. Her expression sharpened. They're still in there. Yes. She checked the time and walked past me without another word. I followed more slowly. I didn't want to be caught listening outside a door. I also didn't want to miss whatever came next. Nathan stepped into the hallway just before Courtney reached the office. I'll let you all get back to the wedding, he said. Courtney smiled. You're coming tonight, right? I'll be here. And tomorrow. Wouldn't miss it. He glanced toward me. Dana. Good to see you again. You too. There was nothing guarded in his manner. If he knew about a problem with the land, he didn't show it. He walked toward the main doors. Dad came out next, holding a thick envelope. Everything ready out here? He asked Courtney. It would be if everyone stayed focused. He smiled and touched her shoulder. Tomorrow is going to be perfect. What about tonight? She asked. Tonight, too. Dad noticed me watching the envelope. Work papers, he said. I didn't ask. You had the look. What look? The title officer look. He tucked the envelope under his arm. "Can you give us the room for a minute? It's your office." I went inside long enough to print the timeline. Timothy and Courtney waited in the hallway. As I gathered the pages, I heard Courtney speak under her breath. "Does Nathan know about Dana's paperwork?" Timothy answered quietly, "No. Your dad says it's routine." I stopped moving. Courtney said, "It is routine. I'm only telling you what the title attorney asked for. She'll sign. You're sure?" "She always signs whatever Dad needs." I looked at the printer. A final sheet slid into the tray. Courtney continued, "She doesn't care about the barn. She just likes being asked." Timothy said something too softly for me to hear. Then Courtney laughed. "Trust me. Dana will make a little speech about protecting the family, and then she'll do it." I picked up the papers and opened the door. They stepped apart. Courtney's smile appeared immediately. "Got them?" "Yes." "Great. Can you give copies to the vendors?" Timothy watched me with a polite, measured expression. I handed Courtney the whole stack. "You can." Her smile slipped. "I'm in the middle of something. So am I." I walked away. No one followed me. Near the side entrance, Mom was speaking to the florist. She waved me over the moment she saw me. "There you are. Courtney said you were being short with her." I handed her the pages she asked for. "It's the way you do things." "What way?" "Like you're proving a point." I looked back toward Dad's office. The door had closed. "What's happening Monday?" Mom's face went still. "What do you mean?" "Nathan said a term sheet expires Monday. You were listening to a private conversation?" "I was sent into the office to use the printer. That doesn't mean you listen." They were speaking with the door open. She glanced toward Courtney. "This is exactly why she didn't want business discussed around you. Because I might understand it? Because you don't know the full situation." "Then tell me." Mom lowered her voice. "Timothy's company may become involved with the venue." "Involved how?" "They have resources, marketing connections, hospitality experience, and money. Businesses need money." "How much?" "I don't know." I believed that she knew. I also believed she had practiced saying she didn't. "Does their investment require Courtney to own the venue?" Mom folded her arms. "You're making it sound ugly. I haven't called it anything. You're implying Timothy is buying his way into the family. I asked about a condition in a business deal. He believes in Courtney's vision. Does he believe in it only if she has sole ownership?" Her eyes moved away from mine. That was an answer. I kept my voice low. "What does Dad want me to sign?" Mom's attention snapped back. "Who said he wants you to sign something?" "Courtney did." "What exactly did she say? That I always sign whatever Dad needs?" She was probably talking generally. "Generally about my signature?" "You help with documents. That's your role. My role. Please don't seize on one word." The florist moved a bucket of white roses between us. Mom waited until she passed. "Your father may need a simple acknowledgement," she said. "Something confirming that you don't have an interest in the venue company." "I don't have an interest in the company." "Exactly. So it shouldn't be an issue." Why would a commercial title attorney need me to confirm something the state filing already shows? Her jaw tightened. "Ask your father." I did. He said nothing concerned me. "Well, there you go." "No, Mom, there I don't go." She stared at me. I had spent most of my life letting that tone end conversations. It was the look that said I was close to becoming inconvenient. This time, I waited. Finally, she said, "Do not disrupt Courtney's wedding over paperwork. I haven't disrupted anything. You came here looking for a problem. I came because Courtney told me to." You know what I mean. I did. She meant I had started paying attention where they depended on me not to. Courtney called Mom from the center aisle. Mom walked away without excusing herself. I left through the side doors and crossed the lawn toward the parking area. The outdoor ceremony chairs had been set in straight white rows facing the orchard. From there, the barn looked exactly as it appeared in the venue brochures. The view crossed my parcel. The chairs stood on my parcel. The side door, where my mother had just told me not to cause trouble, opened onto my parcel. My phone rang before I reached the car. It was Sarah. Dana, she said. I'm sorry I couldn't call sooner. I pulled our old file before returning your message. Do you still have the originals? Yes. I got certified copies from the clerk this morning. Good. Don't give those to anyone. Her urgency caught me off guard. I wasn't planning to. Has your father asked you to sign a release? Not yet, but someone has mentioned one. My mother called it a simple acknowledgement. Sarah was silent for a moment. Those are not the same thing. What exactly did my grandfather set up? I'd rather show you the complete file than explain part of it over the phone. When can I come in? I have an opening at 2. I'll be there. And Dana? Yes? Until we speak, don't sign anything with your family name on it. I didn't. I walked back toward the barn, then stopped before going inside. Mom was visible through the side doors, directing the florist again. Courtney stood on the stage with Timothy, both of them looking at his phone. I had almost 2 hours before my meeting with Sarah. Grandma's house sat farther up the orchard lane, beyond a line of trees Grandpa had planted after a hard freeze killed the original row. I could see her blue porch chairs from the barn. Mom had specifically told me not to involve her. That was reason enough to visit. Grandma answered after my second knock. She wore dark slacks, a flowered blouse, and the small gold earrings Grandpa had given her on their 40th anniversary. You're early, she said. For what? The family supper tonight. I didn't know it was a supper. That's what your mother called it. Courtney called it a gathering. Grandma stepped back to let me in. Then I suppose we're gathering around supper. Her house smelled like coffee and the lemon oil she used on the dining table. A garment bag containing her wedding outfit hung from the doorframe. On the table sat a wrapped box with Courtney's name on it. Grandma walked into the kitchen. Did you eat? I'm not hungry. That wasn't my question. She cut a piece of banana bread and put it on a plate. I sat across from her. For a minute, neither of us mentioned the barn. She asked about Joshua. I asked whether she needed a ride to the family supper. She said Dad was picking her up. Then she touched one finger to the edge of my work bag. What are you carrying? Old papers. Dennis's? Some of them. She waited. Grandma could sit through silence longer than anyone I knew. She never filled it just to help another person avoid the truth. I took out Sarah's letter and the survey. Did you know Grandpa deeded the barn parcel to me? She looked at the survey, then at me. Yes. The answer was immediate. I set the banana bread down. You knew? I was there when he signed his papers. Why didn't you tell me? I thought he had. He told me my name was on something. Dad said it was sentimental. Grandma's mouth tightened. Your grandfather was not sentimental about land records. That's what I thought. She picked up Sarah's letter. Her glasses were on the sideboard, but she didn't need them to recognize it. Sarah sent this after everything was recorded, she said. Why was it in a folder without the deed? I don't know. Did Grandpa keep the original? Sarah kept an original. Dennis brought copies home. Where did they go? I thought you had them. I have a survey and this letter. Grandma sat back. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Your father helped sort the metal box after Dennis got sick, she said. Did Dad know what the deed said? He knew the parcel involved you. Did he know I owned it alone? Dennis did not explain every detail to him. That answer was careful. What did he explain? That he had made arrangements for the barn land and that your name was part of them. Why keep it vague? Grandma looked through the window over the sink. From there, she could see the roof of the barn between the trees. Because your father had already decided Courtney would run everything one day. When? Long before Dennis died. I know Courtney was being prepared to manage it. No, I mean everything. She folded her hands on the table. When Courtney started working there full-time, your father came here with plans. New kitchen, larger parking lot, more events. He kept saying, when Courtney takes over. Dennis asked where you fit. What did Dad say? That you had your own career. I looked down at the survey. The same answer Mom had given me. Grandma continued. Dennis asked why having a career meant you stopped being family. Your father said you weren't interested. Did Grandpa believe him? No. How do you know? He asked you. I remembered a conversation with Grandpa near the equipment shed. He had asked whether I liked working at the venue. I told him I liked helping with the business side but didn't want to plan weddings. At the time, I thought he was making conversation. I said I didn't want Courtney's job. He knew that. Then why did Dad say I wasn't interested? Because it was easier than making room for you. Grandma said it plainly. She didn't soften it or watch my face afterward. I asked, "Is that why Grandpa deeded me the land?" The deed came earlier. The covenant was his way of making sure nobody could treat you like you weren't part of what he built. He never explained that to me. He thought you understood more than you did. Why? You read everything. Not this. No. She ran her thumb along the edge of Sarah's letter. He should have sat you down. I told him that. He believed recording it was enough because recorded things don't depend on anybody remembering correctly. That sounded like Grandpa. It also sounded like the kind of mistake a quiet man could make. He trusted the record. He assumed I would eventually read it. I trusted my father's summary instead. "What does the covenant do?" Grandma asked. "I only read the recorded copy this morning. I'm meeting Sarah at 2. Then let her explain it. You don't know? I know why Dennis wanted it. I don't know all the language Sarah used. Did he tell you not to tell Dad?" "No. He told me not to argue about it." "What's the difference?" "He said the paper would do the arguing when the time came." I looked through the kitchen window. At the barn, someone was raising a white banner above the side porch. From that distance, the workers looked small enough to cover with my hand. "Grandma, Timothy's company is putting money into the venue." "I know. You do? Your father told me Courtney's marriage would bring opportunities." "That's how he said it?" "More or less." "Did he mention a transfer?" "He said Courtney would be secure." "Did he ask you to sign anything?" "No." "Has he shown you any papers?" "No." She pushed the plate toward me again. "Eat before you meet Sarah." I picked up the banana bread. Grandma said, "Your mother told me you were hurt by the toast. She told you that?" "She said Courtney made a joke and you misunderstood." "What did you say?" "I said I heard it." Grandma had been sitting beside me. I'd forgotten that for a moment. "She said you were always the spare," Grandma continued. "Your mother agreed." Glenn agreed. There wasn't much to misunderstand. I took a bite because she was watching. "Mom told me not to discuss any of this with you. That's usually when she knows I won't agree." I finished half the slice and wrapped the rest in a paper napkin. Before I left, Grandma touched my wrist. "Don't decide what Dennis meant until you read what he did." Sarah's office was in a brick building near downtown Lewisburg. The waiting room had dark green chairs, framed county maps, and a grandfather clock that ran 2 minutes slow. Sarah came out at exactly 2. She wore a gray suit and carried a thick file with my grandfather's name written on the tab. "Come back," she said. Her office looked onto the courthouse lawn. She closed the door, placed the file on the table between us, and held out her hand for my county copies. I gave her the working set. "Keep your certified copies somewhere secure," she said. "They're locked at my office." "Good." She compared the recording stamp, page numbers, signatures, and legal description against the duplicate original in her file. She took her time. Finally, she said, "They match." "Exactly?" "Exactly." She turned the deed toward me. "Your grandfather conveyed the parcel to you alone. This was a completed gift. It wasn't part of his later estate, and it wasn't something your father could inherit." "What about the barn itself?" "The business improved a structure on land it did not own. That can get complicated, but the operating agreement and ground lease were written to address it. You have the lease?" She removed another document from the file. It was dated when the LLC began using the barn commercially in 2010. Dad had signed for the company. Grandpa had signed as trustee for my benefit under the earlier arrangement. Why didn't I sign this? The deed already made you the owner. At that time, Dennis handled the lease administration under the authority written into the original documents. That authority ended when he died. And after that, you became the acting landowner directly. No one told me. They should have. Did my father receive a copy? Yes. She showed me a delivery acknowledgement bearing Dad's signature. He had received it several weeks after Grandpa's death. I stared at the signature. Would this have told him I owned the parcel? The cover letter stated it clearly. Then why does he call it sentimental paperwork? I can't answer that. Does he know I control what happens to the land? He may not understand the full covenant. The letter advised him to contact me, and he never did. Sarah opened the covenant. Dennis's concern was fairness. He wanted the venue to stay available as a shared family asset. The company received a very favorable ground lease as long as that remained true. How favorable? Nominal rent. And if it stops being shared, the rent changes. Going forward? Not only going forward. She pointed to a paragraph halfway down the page. The wording was formal, but the effect was simple. If the venue company transferred controlling ownership for the sole benefit of one grandchild, or brought in an outside owner under an exclusive arrangement, the favorable rent ended. Then the company owed fair market ground rent for its entire period of commercial use. Retroactively? I asked. Yes. Back to 2010? Yes. I read the paragraph again. What counts as a transfer? A signed conveyance of the company's controlling interest would count. An assignment of the venue lease would count. A binding commitment to hold the business solely for one grandchild could also count, depending on the document and surrounding evidence. What about a public announcement? An announcement alone might show intent, but I'd want a signed instrument or other proof of commitment. I thought about the envelope under Dad's arm. And they can't transfer the land, not without your written, notarized consent. What if they sign something saying they're transferring the whole venue anyway? They can transfer company interests. They can sell equipment. They cannot convey your real property. They also cannot validly assign the ground lease without satisfying the covenant. So Timothy's company could own part of the LLC but lose the right to use the land. That is possible. The barn is on the land. Yes. The parking is on the land. Yes. The access drive is partly on the land. Yes. I sat back. Until then, I had thought I'd discovered a forgotten interest, something that might earn me a seat at a meeting or force my parents to admit I had a legal connection to the property. That wasn't what Grandpa had left me. The venue could own every chair and every strand of lights. It could carry Courtney's name on every brochure. Without my consent, it couldn't promise anyone secure use of the ground. Sarah closed the lease. Dana, you are not asking to be included in their property. They are operating on yours. If you would have kept reading too, leave the word recorded in the comments. I looked down at Dad's delivery acknowledgement. Can the covenant be removed? Only under conditions Dennis listed. None appear to have occurred. Can Dad claim he didn't understand it? He can claim anything. It wouldn't change the record. What happens if I sign the acknowledgement Mom mentioned? That depends entirely on its language. If it says, I have no interest in the venue company, that statement alone is true. But they may attach something else. They may include a waiver, consent, release, lease assignment, or title affidavit written broadly enough to affect your rights. Could they hide that inside an acknowledgement? A competent attorney should explain it. That doesn't mean everyone does. She took a legal pad from beside the file. Tell me exactly what you heard about Monday. I explained the conversation outside Dad's office. I repeated Nathan's words about the term sheet, final title package, executed transfer documents, and clean funding. Sarah wrote each phrase down. Do you know the amount of the investment? No. Do you know what ownership Christensen Hospitality expects? No. Do you know whether your father has already signed anything? He had an envelope. Mom said nothing was finalized. That may be true. You don't sound convinced. It may also mean everything has been signed except the document requiring you. I thought of Courtney saying, she always signs whatever Dad needs. Sarah tapped her pen once. Have they asked you to bring your notary seal? Not yet. Have they asked for identification, your marital status, or a copy of your deed? No. What about your husband's signature? No. Good. Why good? Because they may still think this is routine cleanup. Courtney called it that. That gives you time. To do what? To understand your position before they define it for you. She made copies of several pages from the original file. One was Dad's delivery acknowledgement. Another was the cover letter stating that I held sole title after Grandpa's death. Sarah kept the original file. I want to review the entire covenant again, she said. I also want to calculate the potential rent exposure under the formula Dennis approved. How long will that take? I can give you a preliminary figure this afternoon. A final demand would need supporting records. What records? Dates of commercial use, payments, revenue information, and evidence of any triggering transfer. The company's financial records. Yes, I don't have access. Someone does. Paula Willis's name came to mind. She had kept the venue's books for more than a decade, but I hadn't spoken with her about the business in months. I didn't mention her yet. Sarah slid the copies into an envelope. Do not confront your family with these today. I wasn't planning to. Good. What if Dad asks me to sign tonight? Tell him you need time to review it. He'll say I'm ruining the weekend. He may. And if they sign their transfer without me, call me. She said it without hesitation. I left the office at 3:15. In my car, I set the envelope on the passenger seat and rehearsed 3 different conversations. In one, I walked into the barn and placed the deed in front of Dad. In another, I asked Courtney whether she still thought I was the spare. In the third, I told Mom that the family property she wanted me to stop discussing belonged to me. I didn't make any of those calls. Instead, I drove to my office, locked Sarah's copies with the certified documents, and took a photograph of Dad's delivery acknowledgement for my own records. At 4:20, Courtney texted, "Family supper starts at 6. Please be pleasant. Timothy's partners will be there." A minute later, Dad sent a separate message. "Need to talk before supper. Come to my office at 5:30. Bring Joshua if you want." I read both messages twice. Then Sarah called. "I have a preliminary rent calculation," she said. "How bad is it, for the company?" "Yes." She gave me the figure. I wrote it on a yellow note beside my keyboard. $186,000. That becomes due if the covenant is triggered. Under the recorded formula, yes. And if it hasn't been triggered, the favorable lease remains in place. I looked at Dad's message again. What should I do now? "Listen carefully," Sarah said, "and don't help them trigger it by correcting their mistakes." I copied the number onto a second note and put both in my bag. Then I called Paula. She answered with, "I'm leaving in 10 minutes, Dana. I need to ask you about the barn." There was a pause. Which part? The financial part. That's not really yours to ask me about. Normally I'd agree. I told her I had learned I owned the land. I didn't explain the whole covenant. I said Sarah needed records showing when the venue began commercial use and whether the company had made any ground rent payments. Paula didn't respond right away. Finally, she said, "You honestly didn't know?" "Not until this morning." "And Glenn knows you know?" "No." Good Lord. Why did you say it like that? Can you come here? I'm supposed to meet Dad at 5:30. I can give you 20 minutes. Paula's accounting office was in a small brick building on the other side of town. I arrived at 4:40. She'd already locked the front door, but she let me in when I knocked. Her office was crowded with binders and file boxes. A calculator sat beside her keyboard with a strip of paper curling onto the floor. She closed the blinds before sitting down. "I can't give you client records," she said. "I understand. I mean that. I'm not risking my license because your family won't talk to each other. I'm not asking you to. But I can explain what I've already explained to Glenn and Julie." She pulled a thick folder from a stack beside her desk. On the tab, she had written Edwards Orchard Barn. "You said the venue began commercial operations in 2010, I said. "That's correct. Has the company paid ground rent?" "A token amount. It's listed annually." "To whom?" For years, it went into an account Dennis designated. After he died, Glenn told me to keep recording it as accrued because the ownership paperwork was being sorted. Was it ever paid to me? Not through the venue books. I nodded. That's what Sarah needed. Paula kept her hand on the folder. Is that all you needed? No, I didn't think so. She opened the folder and turned it toward herself. Not me. The barn has lost money for 2 straight years. How much? Enough that it cannot continue in its current form. Did Dad know? I first warned your parents in 2024. They said bookings would recover and Courtney's marketing plan needed time. What happened instead? Operating costs went up. They spent money expanding the wedding packages. They replaced kitchen equipment. They increased advertising. Bookings looked strong on paper, but too many events were discounted. Courtney approves discounts. I know. Did you tell her? Several times. What did she say? That premium clients spend more after booking. Did they? Not enough of them. Paula turned 2 statement pages so I could see the bottom lines. Both showed losses. The second was worse than the first. Is the company behind on bills? They're paying vendors. Slowly. The bank? The line of credit is almost fully used. Payroll? Current. For how long? She looked at the calendar on her wall. Without new money, that depends on the fall booking deposits. Those deposits were supposed to pay for future events. Using them to cover current expenses would only push the shortage forward. Does the family know how close it is? Glenn knows the numbers. Julie knows what I've told her. Courtney knows whenever she chooses to listen. And Timothy? He knows enough. She removed a separate packet from the folder. The top page carried the name Christensen Hospitality Partners. I prepared financial schedules for their review, she said. They've been looking at this business since 2025. How much are they investing? $2,400,000. Even though I expected a large number, hearing it made me sit back. What do they get? Debt paid down, building improvements, working capital, a new marketing budget. What do they get, Paula? She met my eyes. Control. Through Timothy? Through a new ownership arrangement involving Timothy and Courtney. What happens to Dad and Mom? Glenn's managing interest transfers. Julie's interest transfers. Courtney's existing interest rolls into the new structure. So Courtney and Timothy become the only family owners. That is my understanding. And the investment is contingent on that. Yes. Why didn't they tell me? Paula closed the financial statements. You would have to ask them. I have. They answer different questions. That sounds familiar. She stood and walked to a filing cabinet. From the top drawer, she removed a 1-page closing checklist. I'm not giving this to you, she said. Okay, you can read it here. The checklist listed items required before funding. Most were ordinary, updated financials, insurance confirmation, tax clearance, transfer of membership interests. Near the bottom was a line requiring confirmation of clean, undisputed title to the operating property and all necessary owner consents. The due date was Monday. Beside the title item, someone had written, Dana Acknowledgement Pending. I read it twice. Who wrote that? I don't know. It came from Timothy's side. Did you tell them I would sign? No. Did Dad? Apparently, someone did. I pointed to the clean title requirement. Does Nathan know there's a problem? As far as I know, Nathan believes the acknowledgement is routine. Their financial people asked whether the company owned its operating property. Glenn said the family controlled everything necessary, which isn't true. Not if you own the ground. I read the line again. Does Timothy know? He has seen the county records. How do you know? He asked me why ground rent appeared on the books. I told him it related to old family property documents and that he needed to speak with Glenn. When was that? Last month. That likely explained the commercial title company request Vicky found. What did he say after speaking with Dad? That the issue was being handled, meaning me. I assume so. The entire weekend rearranged itself. The wedding wasn't the reason Timothy's partners were at the barn. It was cover for the final inspection. The family supper wasn't simply a chance for relatives to gather, it put Nathan, the extended family, and my parents in the same room the night before the wedding, with Monday's funding deadline hanging over them. Courtney's toast about the venue being placed in the right hands hadn't been a loose promise about someday. They were closing a transaction, and I was the last unfinished item on their checklist. "Why does the transfer have to happen this weekend?" I asked. "The term sheet has already been extended once. Why?" Financial review took longer than expected. Then the title package wasn't complete. Because of the land, possibly. Why attach it to the wedding? Paula gave me a tired look. Courtney wanted the wedding here. Timothy's firm wanted its people to see the venue operating at full scale. Glenn wanted everyone committed before the deadline. And Mom? Julie wants the barn saved. So they're using the wedding as proof of concept. That phrase has been used. And once Courtney has control, Christensen Hospitality funds the business. Yes. What happens if the investment doesn't close? Paula rested both hands on her desk. The venue does not have $2,400,000 somewhere else. What about selling? Without secure rights to the land, what exactly would they sell? I looked at the figures again. Equipment, bookings, a brand, a building attached to property they didn't own, not the venue they had promised Timothy. Did Dad ask you to hide the losses from me? No. He didn't think you would ask. That answer was worse. I moved the closing checklist back toward her. Did you ever tell my parents to stop? I told them the business needed restructuring in 2024. I told them again last year. Glenn said he could not cut staff during wedding season. Julie said reducing marketing would make things worse. Courtney said I didn't understand the value of the brand. What did you say when Timothy's offer came in? That it solved the immediate cash problem but created other risks, such as giving control to the person whose spending helped create the problem. Courtney: Yes. Did Dad listen? He said Timothy would balance her. That sounded exactly like him. Courtney never had to change. Someone else was always assigned to contain the results. I stood and put my bag over my shoulder. Thank you. I didn't show you those pages so you could punish anybody. I know. Then why do you look calmer than when you came in? Because now their behavior makes sense. Paula locked the folder in her cabinet. Be careful tonight. Did Dad tell you what he wants me to sign? No, but he asked me yesterday whether a signed family acknowledgement could satisfy the closing checklist. What did you say? That was a title question, not an accounting question. Did he ask Sarah? Paula gave me a look. I doubt it. I reached the door. Dana, she said. I turned. Your grandfather used to review these books with me. He asked about every expense over a certain amount. When he got older, Glenn started telling him not to worry. Did Grandpa stop asking? No, neither did I. I called Joshua from the car. The barn is failing, I said. He was already driving toward the orchard. How badly? I told him about the losses, the line of credit, and the investment. $2,400,000? He asked. Yes, and they need your acknowledgement before Monday. Yes. What does Courtney receive? Control of the company with Timothy. Dad and Mom transfer out. So the wedding and the business deal are happening together. That's why his partners are here. Joshua was quiet for a few seconds. Do they know you understand the covenant? No. Does Timothy? He knows there's land paperwork. He thinks Dad has it handled. Do you still want me in the meeting? Yes. I'm 10 minutes away. I reached the barn just before 5:30. The family supper tables had been set with cream linens and small jars of orchard flowers. Staff carried trays through the catering kitchen. Grandma was already seated near the windows. Dad's office door was closed. Joshua met me in the hallway. He had changed from work clothes into a blue button-down shirt, but his boots still carried dust around the seams. You okay? He asked. I showed him the closing checklist note I had copied onto my phone. He read it. They've reduced you to a pending item, he said. That's what they think. I knocked on Dad's door. Mom opened it. Courtney and Timothy were seated against the wall. Dad stood behind his desk with the thick envelope in front of him. No one offered us chairs. Dad looked at Joshua, then at me. "I'm glad you came," he said. "We need one small favor before supper." He opened the envelope and placed a document on the desk between us. The heading read, "Acknowledgement, Consent, and Release." I picked it up. The first paragraph stated that I held no interest in Edwards Orchard Barn, LLC. That part was true. The second stated that I claim no ownership interest in any real estate used by the company. That part was false. The third gave my consent to any current or future transfer of the company, its leasehold interests, its operating property, and its rights of access. The fourth released every related claim I might have, whether known or unknown. At the bottom were signature lines for me, Joshua, and a notary. I read it again. "Who drafted this?" I asked. Courtney answered, "Our attorney." "What's the attorney's name?" "Why?" "I'm reading a legal document. It's a standard release. Then the lawyer's name shouldn't be a secret." Timothy leaned forward. "The firm handling our transaction prepared it." "Which firm?" He gave me the name. I recognized it as a Charleston corporate firm, not the commercial title company that had ordered the county record. "Did they send me a cover letter?" I asked. Dad said, "You don't need a cover letter. Did they advise me to have separate counsel review this?" Courtney made a small sound of disbelief. "Dana, seriously?" I kept reading. Dad tapped the desk. "This confirms you aren't part of the venue company. That's all." "No, it isn't." "What else does it say?" "It releases real property claims and approves future lease assignments." Mom folded her arms. "You told me this morning that you had no interest in the company." "I don't." "Then sign it. The company and the land are different things." No one spoke. It was a small sentence, but all four of them reacted. Dad's eyes went to Timothy. Courtney looked at the document in my hand. Timothy recovered first. "The venue operates as one property," he said. "That doesn't make every interest the same." He stood. "Dana, nobody is trying to take your house. I didn't say they were. This is old title cleanup. Your name appears in some historical family documents, and the investors need confirmation that you won't claim an ownership interest later. Have you read those historical documents?" "I've reviewed the title report." "That wasn't my question." Courtney pushed away from the wall. "Why are you talking to him like he's on trial? I'm asking who knows what this paper does. We all know what it does. Then explain paragraph 3. She looked at the document without taking it. It says, "You consent." "To what?" "To the transfer." "What transfer?" Mom stepped between us. "You already know Courtney is taking over." "Taking over management? The business? All of it?" Dad's mouth tightened. "Yes." "And Timothy's firm becomes an owner?" Timothy said, "That structure is still confidential. Then why am I being asked to consent to it?" "Because your signature is a closing requirement." There it was. Not a wedding favor, not family housekeeping. A closing requirement attached to $2,400,000. "Why?" I asked. Timothy glanced at Dad again. Dad said, "Because Grandpa put your name on some old land paperwork." "What kind of paperwork?" "You know what kind." "No." "Tell me." He rubbed one hand over his forehead. "A small interest around the barn. Dennis wanted you to feel included." Joshua shifted beside me, but he didn't speak. I asked, "Have you read the deed?" "Years ago." "What does it convey?" "Dana, this is ridiculous. What does it convey?" Dad's face reddened. "It has no practical effect. The business has operated there for years." "That doesn't answer her," Joshua said. Dad turned on him. "This is between my daughters. You put my name on the document. You're her husband. That's a formality. Then you can answer her." Mom looked toward the door. "People are going to hear us." No one was shouting. The music outside was louder than our voices. Courtney held out her hand. "Give me the paper." I placed it on the desk. "I'm not signing it." Her arm dropped. Dad said, "You haven't even taken time to think." "I took time to read. We can make minor changes." "I'm not signing a release tonight." Timothy's expression stayed calm, but his hands had gone still at his sides. What would make you comfortable? He asked. Independent review. By whom? My attorney. Mom stared at me. You hired an attorney? I spoke to one. Before talking to your father. I tried talking to Dad. Dad leaned over the desk. This does not need to become a legal fight. I didn't call it one. Then don't turn it into one. Give me a copy. No, Courtney said. Dad looked at her. She pointed to the document. That contains private deal terms. It doesn't state the investment amount, I said. That's not the point. I'm not signing a document I'm not allowed to keep. Timothy picked it up and returned it to the envelope. We can send a revised version after the wedding. The term sheet expires Monday, I said. He looked at me carefully. Who told you that? I heard Nathan. Courtney's eyes narrowed. You've been listening to private conversations all day. People keep having them in front of me. Dad came around the desk. Let's stop. Tonight matters to Courtney. The document mattered enough to put in front of me tonight. I thought you'd help. I have helped. This is different. Yes. He lowered his voice. Your sister's future is tied to this. So is mine. Courtney laughed once. How? I looked at her. She didn't know. None of them did. They knew enough to need my signature. They did not know enough to be afraid of proceeding without it. I want my own review, I said. Then I walked out with Joshua. We reached the hallway before Mom followed. Dana. I kept walking. She caught my arm near the catering kitchen. Your father is under enormous pressure. I know. He didn't write that document. He put it in front of me. You're treating him like he tried to trick you. He told me it only concerned the company. It does. It also concerns real property. That old parcel issue has never mattered before. Then they don't need my signature. She released my arm. Why are you doing this now? I didn't choose the deadline. Courtney will never forgive you if the investment fails. I looked through the open doors toward the supper tables. Did anyone ask whether I'd forgive her for calling me the spare? Mom's face hardened. That was a joke. No, it wasn't. You confirmed that this morning. You were pushing me. I asked one question. You wanted me to say something cruel so you could justify this. I didn't write your answer. Courtney called from Dad's office. Mom, leave her. Mom looked at me for another second, then went back. Joshua waited beside the kitchen door. You didn't tell them, he said. No. Was that difficult? Less than I expected. We walked into the main barn. Jasmine was near the stage checking a camera. The black audio pack was clipped to her waistband again. I remembered her expression while she packed after the rehearsal dinner. Give me a minute, I told Joshua. Jasmine looked up when I approached. Hi, she said. Did Courtney need something? No. I wanted to ask you a technical question. Sure. Was your audio equipment running during the toasts last night? Her fingers stopped on the camera controls. Why? I noticed your microphone. She glanced toward Courtney's parents' table. I had a room mic feeding into the second camera. Courtney also wore a lapel mic for behind-the-scenes footage. Was it live during her toast? Yes. Do you still have the recording? I haven't cleared the cards. Did you listen to it? Some of it. Her voice had changed. What did you hear? I asked. Jasmine lowered the camera. The toast. Anything around it? She looked past me to make sure no one was close. Courtney forgot she was wearing the mic. What did she say? I think you should hear it yourself. She led me to a small equipment room near the rear doors. Cases were stacked along one wall. A laptop sat on a folding table beside two backup drives. Jasmine closed the door most of the way. I copy everything before I format a card, she said. Usually I keep raw files until the final video is delivered. Did you consider deleting this one? No. Why not? Because it bothered me. She connected the camera card and opened a file. The timestamp matched the rehearsal dinner. This is continuous from before the first toast until after dinner, she said. The camera image cuts when I moved positions, but the lapel audio kept recording. She moved the playback marker. Courtney's voice came through the laptop speakers. Dad's doing the transfer tomorrow night. Then Timothy said, farther from the microphone, assuming Dana signs. Courtney laughed. She will. Dad just has to make it sound like family paperwork. My mother's voice came next. Don't talk about it out here, Courtney said. Nobody's listening. Dad joined them. Nathan can't know there's a separate land issue. Once Dana signs the release, it's done. My mother said, and she will sign. She's always wanted to feel useful. There was movement, then Courtney's voice again. She's the spare. That's what spares are for. The recording continued as someone called everyone to their seats. A few minutes later, Courtney gave her toast. To Dana. You were always the spare. The room laughed through the laptop speakers. My mother said, well, she was. Dad said, Courtney was always going to carry this place forward. Jasmine paused the file. The equipment room became very quiet. I'm sorry, she said. Play what happened after. She moved forward. The microphone had stayed live as Courtney returned to the table. My mother said, you took that too far. Courtney answered, she knows it's true. Dad said, just be nice until she signs tomorrow. Courtney laughed again. Fine, then she can go back to being offended. Jasmine stopped the audio. I looked at the file details. The date, time, camera identifier, and duration were all visible. Can you preserve the original card? I asked. Yes. Don't edit it. I won't. Do you have another copy? On the backup drive. Can you give me a copy of the full file? She hesitated. Courtney hired me. I understand. This could cost me the job. I won't say where it came from without your permission. She looked toward the door. Then she inserted a small empty drive into the laptop. I'm giving you the continuous audio, not the wedding footage. The audio contains you and comments about you. I'm also making a note that it was copied without alteration. She transferred the file and typed a short statement with the file name, original card number, recording time, and backup location. She signed it and handed both to me. Keep the drive somewhere safe, she said. Will you keep the originals? Yes. If someone asks you to delete them, I'll tell them the cards are part of my normal archive. Would you confirm the recording is authentic if needed? Her face tightened, but she nodded. I won't lie for them. I thanked her and left the room. Joshua was waiting outside. I handed him one earbud and played the relevant section from my phone after copying the file. He listened without moving. When it ended, he returned the earbud. Send it to Sarah, he said. I did. Sarah called within 3 minutes. Keep the drive, she said. Do not alter the file or rename it. I'll preserve the copy you sent and note when I received it. Does it matter? It establishes intent, timing, knowledge of the land issue, and their plan to obtain your signature without telling the investor. They haven't triggered the covenant yet, not from what we know, but Dad says he's transferring the company. Saying it privately isn't enough. The document or completed commitment matters. The family supper starts in a few minutes. Then let them speak, Sarah said. Dad called while I was still standing beside the equipment room. I let it ring once before answering. Where are you? He asked. In the barn. I want to settle this before people sit down. I'm not signing tonight. It's one paper. It's a release. It's a wedding gift to your sister. No, a gift is something I choose. His voice went flat. Courtney's lawyer drew it up. The deal depends on it. I am asking you directly as your father to sign the paper. I heard you. Is that a yes? No. He ended the call. A moment later, he sent the document as an email attachment. The subject line read, "Signature required before Monday closing." The message included the date and time, his direct request, and the sentence, "Dana's refusal will prevent Courtney from receiving the venue as intended." I forwarded it to Sarah. Then I placed Jasmine's drive in the inside pocket of my purse and walked with Joshua toward the family supper. The tables were almost full. Grandma sat near the windows with an empty chair beside her. She had saved it for me by placing her purse on the seat. Mom noticed. "Dana is supposed to sit with Courtney's cousins," she said. Grandma moved her purse to the floor. "She's sitting here." Mom looked at me. "Fine. Joshua can sit at the next table." "No," Grandma said. "He can sit here too." There were 2 open chairs. Mom knew it. She adjusted a fork that didn't need adjusting, then walked away. Joshua pulled out my chair. I sat with my purse between my feet. Jasmine's drive felt much heavier than it was. Grandma leaned closer. "Did you read everything?" I spoke to Sarah. "And?" Grandpa knew what he was doing. Grandma nodded. "I told you." Across the room, Dad stood with Timothy near the office. The thick envelope was still under Dad's arm. Courtney joined them, and all 3 looked toward me. "Are they asking you to sign something?" Grandma said. "Yes." "Did you?" "No." She picked up her water glass. "Good." The supper began with salad and rolls. Conversation stayed polite. Relatives talked about the weather, the flowers, and where they were staying. People from Timothy's firm discussed other venues they had visited. Nathan sat beside Dad. He appeared relaxed. At one point, he asked Dad, "Everything still on track for Monday?" Dad smiled. "Better than on track." I looked down at my plate. Joshua heard it too. His hand rested against his knee beneath the table, close enough that our fingers touched. Courtney moved from table to table in a pale green dress, accepting compliments. She stopped beside us while Grandma was telling Joshua about a storm that damaged the barn roof years ago. "There you are," Courtney said to me. "I thought you'd left again." "I'm sitting where my place setting is. Mom said you might be upset." "Mom says a lot of things." Grandma buttered a roll. Courtney's smile tightened. "Can I talk to you privately?" "No." The answer came out calm. She glanced at Grandma and Joshua. "It's about the document. Then it can wait." "It can't. You should have given it to me before the closing deadline. You knew the barn was going to me. I knew you expected it to." "What's the difference?" I looked at her. "You'll find out." Her expression changed, but only for a second. Then she laughed lightly. "You're being so dramatic." A relative at the next table turned toward us. Courtney lowered her voice. "Dad is signing tonight whether you participate or not. That's his decision. You're still going to have to sign the release." "No, you don't own the company. I never said I did." "Then stop acting like you have veto power." Grandma set down her knife. "Courtney, go enjoy your supper." Courtney stared at her. "I'm trying to handle a business matter." "No, you're trying to pressure your sister at the table. This doesn't concern you. It's my husband's land." The words made Courtney pause, not because Grandma had revealed anything specific. The entire orchard had once belonged to Grandpa and Grandma. Courtney could interpret it as memory. She recovered quickly. Grandpa wanted the barn to stay in the family. So did he, Grandma said. Courtney walked away. Joshua waited until she was out of hearing range. "She has no idea," he murmured. "No. Are you going to stop Glenn before he signs?" I looked toward Dad. "No." Grandma heard me. She didn't ask why. After the main course, Mom went to the microphone. Jasmine moved into position near the stage. A second camera faced the tables. I saw the small red recording light. Mom tapped the microphone. "We wanted tonight to be relaxed," she said. "Just family, close friends, and the people who have helped Courtney and Timothy reach this wonderful weekend." Staff members cleared plates quietly behind her. Mom spoke about Courtney's work at the barn. She described how Courtney had transformed it from an old family property into one of the area's most beautiful venues. She didn't mention that the business had operated for years before Courtney joined it. She didn't mention Grandpa's workbench, Paula's warnings, or the unpaid help she had called my role. Then Mom smiled toward Timothy's table. "This marriage is bringing together more than two people. It's bringing together a shared vision for the future." Nathan lifted his glass. Mom called Dad forward. He carried the envelope. I took out my phone beneath the table and sent Sarah a message. "They're making the announcement now." Her reply came quickly. "Do not interrupt. Preserve the exact language and any signed document." I put my phone down. Dad took the microphone. "When my parents bought this land, the barn needed everything," he said. "A roof, a floor, electricity that didn't scare you." People laughed. He talked about cleaning the place out, hosting the first weddings, and watching Courtney grow into the person who would lead it next. Julie and I have always known which of our daughters had the heart for this work. Mom smiled at Courtney. Dad continued. Dana found her calling elsewhere, and we're proud of her. She's helped when asked. But Courtney stayed close to the land. Joshua's jaw moved once. I kept my hands in my lap. Dad opened the envelope. Tonight, before Courtney and Timothy begin their life as husband and wife, Julie and I want to make our own commitment. He removed a document and held it up. This transfers my controlling interest in Edward's Orchard Barn to Courtney, effective immediately. There was applause. Nathan turned toward Timothy with visible surprise. Timothy smiled and raised his glass. Dad said, Julie has already completed the transfer of her interest. After I sign, Courtney will hold the family's ownership, ready for the next stage of growth with Timothy. That language mattered. Family ownership moved to one grandchild. The outside arrangement with Timothy came next. The covenant did not require them to understand what they had triggered. It required the commitment. Dad placed the document on a small table near the stage. Mom stood on one side. Courtney and Timothy stood on the other. Jasmine photographed the first page before Dad turned to the signature line. Nathan called out, "Should I be reviewing this before you sign?" People laughed. Timothy answered, "Council already has." Nathan nodded, satisfied. He believed the title issue had been handled. Dad uncapped a pen. Before signing, he looked toward me. It was brief, but everyone near our table saw it. He was giving me one last chance to stand up and cooperate. I didn't move. Dad signed. Jasmine's camera clicked several times. Mom signed as a witness. Courtney signed an acceptance beneath Dad's name. Timothy signed for the new ownership arrangement described in an attached page. Dad wrote the time beside his signature, 7:46 in the evening. The room applauded again. I sent the time to Sarah. She replied, "Understood. Do not sign anything." Dad returned to the microphone. There is one final piece of family paperwork to complete, but we expect that before Monday. His eyes remained on me. Nathan looked around the room. "What paperwork?" Timothy answered before Dad could. "A routine acknowledgement from a non-member." Nathan accepted that. "Then congratulations," he said. He stood and raised his glass. "To the future." Most of the room joined him. Grandma did not. Joshua did not. I lifted my water but didn't drink. Courtney took the microphone. "I know this is supposed to be about gratitude," she said, "but I also want to say something about knowing your place." She looked directly at me. The room grew quieter. Dana has spent today making a simple family decision much harder than it needed to be. Mom shifted beside her but didn't intervene. Courtney continued, "She's good at details. Sometimes she forgets that details aren't the same as leadership." A few people looked down at their tables. I stayed seated. Courtney smiled. "Like I said last night, you were always the spare." No one laughed immediately this time. Then Courtney did. Mom gave a small, nervous laugh with her. Dad took the microphone from Courtney. "She isn't wrong," he said. "Every family has different roles." Mom added, "Dana knows we love her, but this place was always meant for Courtney." Grandma pushed her chair back. The legs scraped against the floor. I touched her wrist. "Not yet," I said quietly. She looked at me, then sat again. Dad raised his glass. "To Edward's Orchard Barn, in the right hands at last." The room followed because refusing would have required people to understand what they were refusing. I looked at the signed document on the table near the stage. The photographer kept taking pictures. The audio pack kept recording. Courtney believed she had just received everything. Dad believed he had completed the important transfer and left me only a formality. Timothy believed he had one weekend left to force a signature. I let all three of them believe it. The next morning, Dad emailed me the signed transfer and another copy of the release. His message said, "Bring the signed acknowledgement to the reception. Your attorney may attend if that makes you comfortable." He thought Sarah was coming to approve my signature. I printed the transfer, including the page showing 7:46 as the effective time. Jasmine gave me clear photographs of Dad, Mom, Courtney, and Timothy signing it. She also preserved the supper audio with the rehearsal recording. Sarah arrived after the ceremony carrying the original covenant file. The wedding itself went forward. I stood for photographs. I congratulated Courtney. I didn't discuss the land while she walked down the aisle or while Grandma fixed the edge of her veil. The reception began inside the barn. After dinner, Nathan went to the microphone. Timothy stood beside him with one hand in his pocket. Nathan smiled at the room. I understand there is one last family signature coming tonight. Once that is complete, Christensen Hospitality Partners expects to close its $2,400,000 investment on Monday. People applauded. Dad looked at me. I stood. I need to clarify something before Nathan announces a closing. The room quieted. Courtney shook her head. Dana, don't. I walked to the open space beside the microphone. Sarah followed and placed her file on the table. Dad stood halfway. What is she doing here? You invited my attorney. I invited her to review your signature. She did. I held up the certified deed. This was recorded at the Greenbrier County Clerk's office in 2005. It conveys the land under this barn solely to me. Nathan looked at Timothy. Timothy said, "That's the old family paperwork we discussed." "No," I said. "You discussed it with my father. Nobody disclosed it to your partner." I handed Nathan a copy. He read the first page, then turned to Dad. "Glenn, does the LLC own this land?" Dad's face had gone pale. "The family owns it." Nathan pointed to my name. "She owns it." Courtney stepped forward. "She's still family." Sarah opened the original file. "My name is Sarah Watkins. I drafted this deed and the attached ground lease covenant for Dennis Edwards. The county copy matches my firm's original exactly." Dad looked at the document. "What covenant?" "The one referenced on the deed you received after Dennis died," Sarah said. She produced his signed delivery acknowledgement. Mom whispered, "Glenn." Sarah continued. The venue received nominal ground rent while it remained held for the equal benefit of both grandchildren. Last night's signed transfer placed controlling ownership with Courtney alone and committed the business to an outside arrangement. Dad stared at her. "We haven't closed the investment. You completed the family transfer at 7:46, Sarah said. That triggered the covenant. I placed his signed transfer beside the deed. Courtney grabbed the edge of the table. "What does triggered mean?" "The favorable lease ended," I said. Full fair market ground rent became due retroactively from the company's commercial use. Timothy looked at Sarah. "How much?" $186,000, she said. The room stayed completely silent. Dad sat down. I continued. "No transfer of the land or assignment of its lease is valid without my notarized consent. I have not given it." Nathan closed the document. "Was your title counsel told about this covenant?" Timothy answered, "We believed it was a routine family release. Did you tell counsel Dana had refused to sign?" Timothy didn't answer. Nathan looked at Dad. "Did you represent that all necessary family consents were secured?" Dad said, "We expected her to cooperate. That isn't what I asked." Courtney stepped toward me. "You planned this because of a joke." "No." "Yes, you did. You're angry about the toast." Mom stood beside her. "It was tasteless, but this is completely out of proportion." "I took Jasmine's drive from my purse. That was your explanation yesterday. So I brought the unedited recording." Jasmine stood near her camera. Nathan asked, "Is it authentic?" She said, "I recorded it. The original file remains on my card and backup drive. This copy is unaltered. I connected the drive to the reception sound system." Courtney's voice filled the barn. "Dad's doing the transfer tomorrow night." Then Timothy said, "Assuming Dana signs." Courtney laughed through the speakers. "She will. Dad just has to make it sound like family paperwork." Mom's recorded voice warned them not to discuss it in public. Dad's voice followed. "Nathan can't know there's a separate land issue. No one moved." Then Courtney said, "She's the spare. That's what spares are for." I let the file continue through the toast. You were always the spare. Mom agreed, Dad agreed. When it reached Dad saying, just be nice until she signs tomorrow, I stopped it. Nathan looked at Timothy. You concealed a title issue from me. Timothy said, I was handling it. You were pressuring an owner to release property without independent disclosure. It's more complicated than that. No, Nathan said. It's now very simple. He took the microphone. Christensen Hospitality Partners will not fund this transaction. We are withdrawing the $2,400,000 investment effective immediately. Timothy followed him away from the stage. Courtney stood in front of me. You ruined my wedding. You're married. I stopped your closing. She raised her voice. You couldn't let me have one thing. I didn't answer. Grandma came to stand beside me. Sarah returned the covenant to its file. The reception continued for another hour, but the business celebration was over. By Monday, Nathan's firm confirmed the withdrawal in writing. The transfer of Dad's company interest remained signed, but it couldn't deliver what Courtney and Timothy had promised. They had control of a venue company owing me $186,000 and no secure right to continue using my land without an agreement. The company couldn't pay the full amount. I didn't lock the doors or cancel booked weddings. Couples who had nothing to do with my family were depending on those dates. Through Sarah, I offered a payment plan and a new lease. The terms required independent accounting, no transfer without written consent, smaller operations, and a fair annual rent. The venue dropped its expansion plans and reduced the number of events. Courtney refused to work under my terms. She called them humiliating and stepped away from daily management. Julie stopped handling bookings soon afterward. Neither apologized. Timothy remained married to Courtney, but Christensen Hospitality Partners removed him from decisions involving the orchard. Whatever happened inside that marriage wasn't my responsibility. Dad came to my house alone 6 weeks later. Joshua let him in, then went to the kitchen. Dad sat at our dining table with both hands around a cup of coffee. I read everything, he said. You should have read it years ago. I did read the cover letter. I decided Dennis was making a symbolic point. He wasn't. No. He looked toward the window. I thought if you signed, the barn would survive. I told myself that made the way we asked acceptable. You didn't ask honestly. I know. He swallowed. I let Courtney treat you like you were less important because correcting her always cost me something. Then I did the same thing. It was the first apology he had ever given me without explaining why I should accept it. I'm sorry, he said. Not for getting caught, not just for the deal. I'm sorry I agreed when she called you the spare. Thank you. I didn't hug him. I didn't tell him everything was fine. We started with coffee once a month. Some months went better than others. Trust came back in inches, not because he wanted it, but because his behavior slowly made room for it. The venue survived. The new sign went up the following spring. It read, Dennis Edwards Orchard Barn. Grandma stood beside me while the installers secured it above the doors. Dad watched from the gravel drive. Courtney and Mom weren't there. I still keep the certified deed, the signed transfer, and Jasmine's drive in separate locked places. Grandpa protected me with a record because he understood something my parents did not. Calling someone the spare doesn't make her powerless. Sometimes it only tells her to check what she's carrying. Please subscribe and tell me which city you're watching from.